Looking at the Markets with David Modell.
Welcome to Looking at the Markets with David Modell. Today's guest is Mr. Greg Crow, who has lived and breathed resources for 30 years now. He is the CEO of a company that has seen its shares beaten down and is now undervalued compared to the assets within the company and the growth potential associated with those assets, which is something I want to stress. We're talking about Silver One Resources, Inc., and the website, which you need to check out, silverone.com. And if you're interested in possibly looking into the shares on the TSXV exchange, it is ticker symbol SVE. On the OTC markets in the United States, SLVRF. Now look, when this began trading in September of 2016, the price per share was $1.25 in Canadian dollars. It recently traded as low as 13 cents, which makes for a 90% drop overall. This was a 120 million Canadian dollar company that was sold off so disproportionately that it was worth $12 million 3 months ago. Currently, its market cap is only $20 million Canadian. So I want to proudly welcome Mr. Greg Crow to my program. Thank you, sir, for coming on. I really appreciate it today.
Well, thank you very much, David, for having me, and I look forward to a good, lively discussion.
Yeah, we're going to talk silver. We're going to talk precious metals. I'm a huge fan of both of those. And, for people listening to this right now, you definitely want to check out portfoliowealthglobal.com/silver. It's the best place to read more about this company, its assets, who are key and very well-known shareholders, such as Mr. Silver himself, Keith Neumeyer, who believe in it and why it offers leverage to the new precious metals bull market. So let's get into this. Silver. Look, silver price suppression. It is real. Okay, and I want to talk about how the paper and physical markets are leveraged. So if there is a short squeeze, prices in silver have the potential to take off. I want to get your thoughts on this, the suppression and the potential for silver to really take off in 2019.
Yeah, well, silver is an interesting commodity because it's not purely a precious metal like gold is really a pure precious metal almost. It's quite an industrial metal as well. So there's only a certain portion of it, shall we say, that would be suppressed, and that's the investor side. That makes up about 20, maybe up to 30% of actually the use of silver. Coins, bars, what you tuck in your vaults, what you put away under your mattress, so that you can sleep at night, etc. But the rest of it is industrial, and that's just a basic supply demand. But you're right, there is some suppression of all metals and all commodities. And if there is a squeeze on precious metals, then you're going to see major rise in both gold and silver. And, we can start talking about what are some of the fundamentals that are going to lead to that squeeze, and I'd be happy to do that if you want to go down that avenue.
Yeah, absolutely, because I believe there will be a massive squeeze, which will benefit not only precious metals holders, but also the miners. And if you get into a great mining company now, you're really going to benefit from this. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%. And generally speaking, during the run-up of a new bull market, and the last one that we really saw in precious and base metals, the commodities boom lasted from about 2003 till about 2012, so just under 10 years. Once you're in one of those, usually in the initial stages anyway, you see silver outperform gold on a percentage basis, and also you see mining companies outperform the actual physical commodity, particularly mining companies that have some real assets and good management behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, silver has some amazing properties. It is one of the most useful metals out there, both for industrial purposes and as a store of value as well. Now, currently, there is an 80-to-1 gold to silver ratio. This is rare. I know this has only happened a handful of times since 1971 when the United States got off of the gold standard. So will there be some mean reversion, do you think? And how, based on history, how do you think this is going to affect silver prices going forward?
Yeah, well, this ratio is cyclical, just like the prices of the commodities are cyclical, just as recessions are cyclical, just as economic runs are cyclical. So, yes, indeed, we're going to see a return. Now, on average, the gold-silver ratio, which tells us how many ounces of silver you need to buy 1 ounce of gold, has averaged over the last few decades somewhere between 50 and 60 to 1. That's an average. If you want to go back centuries, it used to be 15 to 1 until in the late 1800s, countries like the United States started using gold as a backing for their fiat currencies. But as I said, in the last several decades, it's sort of been averaging 50 to 60 to 1. And every time it does creep up, you're quite correct, over 80, and it has been as high as 100, but not for very long. It just spiked there.
Right.
But as it creeps up over 80, it starts coming back down. Now, what are some of the fundamentals that bring that back down? Well, various economic parameters, excessive debt, interest rates, market volatility, political instability, etc. And what happens is when that occurs, particularly at the beginning of a new bull market run, you see silver, which is poor man's gold, outperform gold, and that gold-silver ratio corrects itself. For instance, if we were to see, without any movement in the current gold price, a dropping of the ratio from 80 to 1 back to, say, 55 to 1, which has been the average, you would see silver instantly climb to about $22, $23 per ounce without any other changes taking place. So that's a fundamental to watch, and some of the drivers of that are the changes in the economy, political uncertainty, etc. And we're seeing that right now.
I think one of the drivers of the new bull run in silver in 2019 will be demand from Asia. I've been doing some research on this. I know that Asia and other countries as well, such as Russia, Turkey, India, have been hoarding gold in huge quantities. But what about silver? Is there going to be some serious major demand from Asia for silver?
Well, there currently is a demand for silver. I mean, China has seen a huge increase in the usage of silver. And for instance, one of the big uses of silver, and don't forget it is industrial, is in the photovoltaic or solar panel industry. And China is one of the leading countries that's moving towards that because of the excessive pollution caused by their coal mining and their coal industry, etc. And they've been making great advances. Also, silver is used extensively in electrical connections that are in your cell phones, in your computers, electrical cars. It's used in the medical industry as an antibacterial component, and many, many other uses. You're seeing this growth in China slightly dampened by this current trade wars that are happening, but it's not going to abate. It's going to carry on. And if you look at a population of 1.3 billion, with India following behind, and places like Indonesia with 350 million people, it kind of dwarfs the Western world. And the Western world is one of the biggest consumers, of course, but China is coming on strong. And yes, there's going to be a continued demand for silver. And don't forget that some countries like India have tried to control the ability for individuals to hold gold. Well, what are they going to do? They're going to go to the poor man's gold. They're going to start holding silver.
Yeah, interesting. I could easily see that happening. And I just want to ask you a very unusual question. This is something that most people don't get to experience, which is being a mining executive and to actually see and have silver come out of those mineral veins. What is the feeling like to hold that in your hands and to see it happening in action?
Okay, well, maybe an analogy would be, have you ever walked into a jewelry store with your significant other? And have you watched her ogle the diamonds and the gold?
Yes.
Okay, well, prospectors, geologists, etc. feel the same thing. If you actually do see mineralization, and in a lot of instances you don't because it's microscopic, but if you actually do see a vein of good gold or silver, you get very excited and you start acting like a little child. But that's beside the point.
Sounds fantastic. All right. Well, I wanted to get into the nitty-gritty of your company, Silver One Resources. I want to let people know that shares right now are so undervalued. They're down about 85%. And so the potential upside the rebound, I feel, can be huge. I wanted to ask what Silver One's plans are for 2019, if you think the assets are fairly valued as you see it at the moment, and if so, can you compare Candelaria's size and scope to other projects and how much they're valued compared to the peers?
Okay, little difficult question, but at the same time, I'm just going to go a little bit historically here and just say, when we formed our company in 2016, it was a bit more optimistic with respect to precious metal prices. Silver was trading in the mid-20s, right, and everybody thought that we were on the beginning of a bull run.
Yep.
But something funny happened on the way to the White House in November. And
Yep.
Mr. Trump got elected, changed the policies. He brought in tax reform. He brought in deregulation. And we saw the big run-up in the markets. Well, that was not good for precious metals. Now, I've been around for a couple of decades, probably more than a couple, and I've seen some of these cycles up and down. So even though I, like most CEOs, don't like to see a drop in our share value, I know how to live through it. And what we did in the interim, we didn't stick our heads in the sand and hope. We actually went out and we started looking for new assets. We did a deal on the Candelaria project, which was formerly the richest silver producer in the state of Nevada, produced up until the late 1990s by Kinross Gold, produced about 68 million ounces of silver. The only reason it was shut down in 97, 98 was due to the total collapse of silver prices, well under $5 per ounce silver. It even went down to $2.50 there for a little bit.
Yeah.
So it got sold to Silver Standard. Silver Standard has morphed into a new company called SSR Resources that's focusing on gold. They were selling off some of their silver assets. We did a deal to acquire Candelaria to get 100%. We're working to develop that asset. We're looking at two components. First, potentially reopening the old heap leach pads, which were not exhausted by Kinross, but still contain, at least from a historical resource viewpoint, about 48 million ounces of silver sitting on top of the ground at an average grade of about 1.3 ounces per ton silver, or about 40 grams per ton silver. Now that's pretty exciting. When you look at a comparable, there's a company called Core Mining that's mining the Rochester mine in northern Nevada. Mm-hmm. They're actually producing, mining, and heap leaching silver oxide ore and processing through heap leaching at an average grade of about 15 grams per ton silver. So we think we have a good chance. We're currently doing our metallurgical studies. But not only that, we've got huge upside potential from an exploration viewpoint, because there hasn't really been any true systematic drilling exploration outside a previous open pit area. And we think there's a lot more potential for a lot more mineralization there.
Yeah.
On top of that, we acquired a new project in eastern Nevada. Totally open, old silver camp. We went in, we staked it, started sampling it, getting values up to almost 2,000 ppm or grams per ton silver. That's about, almost 50, 60 ounces per ton silver. We're getting about 2 grams per ton gold. All these are from surface samples. We need to do our drilling to prove up, true mineralization and is there economic potential. But it's looking very, very progressive. So we haven't sat idle. We've been acquiring good assets, and now I think that we are poised for a return to a bull market.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I wanted to ask, how rare is it, in your opinion, to find a pure silver stock, a pure play in silver? And also, I wanted to follow up with why focus on Nevada and Mexico. But first, the pure play. How hard is it to find a pure silver stock?
Very hard. I mean, we're probably one of the purest when you look at Candelaria because it only has silver. But that doesn't mean that if we drilled deeper that wouldn't change, because geologically speaking, these systems vary with depth and along strike. For instance, one of the purest silver plays out there is a group that certainly is heavily invested in our company, First Majestic out of Mexico.
Right.
They promote themselves as a pure silver company, but in reality, they only produce about 60 to 70% of their revenues from silver. The rest is lead, zinc, and gold. And this is quite common. It's very rare to find a pure silver mine, and if you do find one, generally they're small. Candelaria seems to be a bit of an exception, which we're quite excited about. Another one perhaps is Comstock.
Yeah. So, and again, why focus on Nevada and Mexico in particular?
Jurisdiction. I've worked around the world. I've worked in some countries that I don't care to go back to, etc. Right. And governments change, policies change, and they're not always the most stable. What I like about Nevada, it's constantly rated as one of the top mining jurisdictions in the world. Yes, it takes a little bit of time to do your permitting, but if you do things right, there's rule of law and there's a process. And if you follow that process, you're going to get your permit. And in particular with Candelaria, it was a past producer, and the government would love to see a group come in, reopen it, mine, and reclaim it at the end. They would fully support that. You put a plan in place, they will be supportive of you. That's why I like Nevada. Plus, the geological potential is enormous. Mexico, geological potential. And it's been a relatively good mining jurisdiction for the last many years. And our associates are certainly having a good success in Mexico, so we feel comfortable in both jurisdictions.
Yeah, and that's key. Mining-friendly jurisdictions, rich deposits or potentially rich deposits. These are things I look for when I invest in any mining company. And and I see
clear process and rule of law.
Right, there you go. These are all key pieces of the puzzle, and I see Silver One Resources as having all those pieces in place. Again, if people want to visit the website, silver1.com, I'll put that link in the description below this video. I'll also put a link in the description for the report, which I want everybody to check out, portfoliowealthglobal.com/silver. And this report highlights the exploration potential of your other projects. And it also explains how Mr. Silver himself, Keith Neumeyer, is a shareholder of Silver One. Now, one more question, if I may. In the traditional investment world, when a billionaire hedge fund manager takes a position with a company, that means a lot about the strength of that company. Is that the same in the resource world? In other words, does this speak volumes about the validity of your portfolio of assets?
Well, it's interesting in the sense that you don't usually get people of that caliber investing in your company unless they have faith that there's going to be an increase in shareholder value, an increase in their personal investment.
Sure.
With respect to Mr. Neumeyer, he came in early. He saw the share price come off, but he wasn't deterred about remaining a shareholder because he saw us growing the company and increasing that asset base. And he knew that the drop in share price was mainly due to the collapse of the precious metal markets in light of the Trumponomics that were taking place. We seem to have run out of steam with Trumponomics, and we're returning to a bull market in silver and gold. And I think that that bodes very well for a lot of the junior companies.
Sure. And when you've got Mr. Silver, Keith Neumeyer, he's not just voting with his words, he's voting with capital. So obviously he knows a thing or two about silver, and he's voting with his dollars for this company with so much upside potential. Again, I want people to check out portfoliowealthglobal.com/silver. I'll put that link in the description below this video so you can click on it, tap on it on your phone, and you can pull it right up. If you're interested in the shares on the TSXV exchange, ticker symbol SVE, or you can also get it in the United States on the OTC market. It is SLVRF. Mr. Greg Crow, CEO and president of Silver One Resources, Inc. Is there anything else you wanted to say to my audience that I forgot to mention or ask you about?
No, just thank you very much for the time and allowing me to get out and talk about silver, which I certainly like, and the ability to tell people a little bit about Silver One.
Thanks, everybody. This has been Looking at the Markets. We're going to keep on bringing you the best in the precious metals space. Thanks a lot. We'll see you again soon.